Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to 6 a.m. and our final session of What is a Raindrop Anyway? Thank you for joining me this morning. As always, if you're catching the replay, just hashtag replay for me. That helps others find these videos. And these have been particularly informative. Raindrop is an awesome technique. So, all right, let's just review very quickly our raindrop. So what we start with is, of course, working with the feet and the VitaFlex technique, where we just take our fingers and we start at the heel, the base of the heel, and you start with the pad, come up to the tip and flip over, and you just scooch up the foot till you hit the top of that big toe. And you do that with each of the oils in a very specific order, 3 times on each foot. So you start with Valor, and then you move on to oregano and thyme and basil, and keep going down the line until you hit peppermint. All right, so once you've done that to both feet, then you would ask the person receiving the raindrop to roll over, and so that you can access their backs. And this is the part of the raindrop that you really where you get a lot of the benefits from. I mean, you get benefits from the whole thing, obviously, but the back is where a lot of the work happens. And this is our shortest section because we've gone through all of the oils already. So, all right, here we go. So, this is, of course, also where the raindrop gets its name, because what you're doing is moving your notes so that you don't have to keep glancing. All right. So this, when you're applying the oils to the back, this is where what gives raindrop its name, because you're actually dropping the oils onto the back from a height of about 6 inches. So you're dropping like rain, the oils down the back. And then you are feather stroking the oils in. So like it sounds, it's a very soft, very light touch. So it's literally, you're using your fingertips like feathers, and you're just gently stroking with each hand up the spine, like so. It's a lot easier to demonstrate if you're actually performing a raindrop in person. There are people who have recorded it. I am not set up to do that, but if you'd like to see a demonstration of a raindrop, let me know. And by dropping a comment, and I will direct you to a raindrop demonstration video. Or if you want to see it in person, contact me, especially if you're local, and I can arrange that. But anyway, so you would drop the oil down the back, and then you would feather stroke it in. And there's you'd start with like a 3-inch feather, and then you do a 6-inch feather, and you end it with a 12-inch feather. And again, 3 times. Everything goes in 3s. But the oils are applied in sets, and each set ends with a different technique. So you do the first set, where you drop it and you feather it in. And once you've done the set, then it ends with a certain technique. So you might feather out to the sides. You might, one of them, it's like finger circles down the spine. It just depends. Each set ends a little differently, and I'm not going to go into each one because it's more complicated to talk about than it is to see. But the first set that you do is actually the oregano and thyme. So we're going to change up the order that we did on the feet a little bit on the back. Same oils, slightly different order. So the first set you do is your oregano and thyme. So you would raindrop and feather the oregano first, and then you would raindrop and feather the thyme, again in sets of 3, and then you would end your set the way it is as part of the technique. Then you move on to your second set. Same thing. You would do basil, feather that in, wintergreen, feather that in, marjoram, feather that in. Now, as you are ending your second set with the basil, the wintergreen, and the marjoram, if you notice any tight muscles, there's another blend called Aroma Seas. And you can apply that directly to the tight and bunched up muscles in the back to help them relax. It's a lovely blend. I really like it. I did not do a bunch of research on aromaseas this morning, but it is similar to Panaway in that it is very good for muscles and relaxing them. But aromaseas is the one you would use at this point. All right, so your third set is actually just a single oil, cypress. And when you apply cypress, instead of dropping very gently like rain, you actually sprinkle cypress like a salt shaker. So you use a lot of cypress. And the reason we do that is cypress is not a hot oil. So the oils you've been using are very warming to the skin and the muscles. Cypress is not. So the fact that you're sprinkling it like a salt shaker is not uncomfortable to receive. But so cypress doesn't get hot, and then once you've got it, the back basically covered in oil, you would feather that one in and then end your cypress. And then after cypress, you take a moment to do something a little different. So up to this point, everything's been relatively gentle. Some of the insets get a little firmer, but all of the feathering is very, very gentle, very, very light touch. But after you do cypress, you then take a massage oil, specifically Ortho Ease, and you apply that liberally all over the back. And then you do what's called a palm slide. So you would put, let me get it, one hand up and one hand across the back, and then you go back and forth. And this is quite firm because you're actually stimulating all of the internal organs. So you just slide up and then back down and up and back down. And this is a little different because up until this point, everything you're doing on the back starts at the bottom and goes to the top. You never come back down. The palm slide is the one exception. As you're stimulating those internal organs, your touch is going to be a little firmer because you're wanting to get things moving, and you're coming up and back down the spine. So little different because you're actually using a little pressure there. The rest of the raindrop is a very feather-like technique. And then after you do the palm slide with the massage oil, the Ortho Ease, you add in your Valor. So notice we moved where we put that Valor in. On the feet it was first, and here it's more towards the end. But again, you sprinkle that Valor on very similarly to the cypress. And again, Valor's not going to be a warming oil like the other ones were. And then your feather in your Valor. You feather in your Valor and you close that set. And then the last oil you do is your peppermint. Raindrop peppermint. Do not sprinkle peppermint like a salt shaker because that would be very cold and uncomfortable after all this nice warming that you've been doing. But you feather in your peppermint after you drop it, count your drops, and then you would close out your peppermint. And that is all of your oils that you've now applied to the back. And after that, you just let the recipient get a nice warm compress down the entirety of the spine. And you just let them sit there for about 5 to 10 minutes and let all of the heat peak so that all those oils can do what they're designed to do. Now, because you end in peppermint, the recipient may experience what feels like cold because that peppermint's very cooling, even though their skin is quite warm. So have a towel or a sheet handy to keep everything nice and warm. And anyway, after the heat is peaked, that is when you would help the recipient sit up and drink lots and lots and lots of water. So remember that this whole technique is meant to be very detoxifying. If you do not have water to flush your system after releasing all of those toxins, you are going to be miserable. It's just like if you were to receive a deep tissue massage and release all of those toxins and not drink water. I think Mom made that mistake once with her very first deep tissue massage. She didn't drink enough water and she was hurting. She was miserable for a couple of days after. So it's very similar with a raindrop. You're still releasing all of those toxins, so you have got to flush them out by drinking lots of water. So what I usually do when I administer a raindrop is after we're done with the hot compress, I have a glass of water handy. So while usually they're laying there enjoying the compress, I'm going to get the water in the other room, and I've got it there. So as soon as they sit up, they can start guzzling that water and flushing out all of the things that have just been released. So, and then you're going to want to continue to drink plenty of water for the next couple of days, because remember, the oils in a raindrop can work for up to a week. So you may see benefits continuing on past, that initial, I just got a raindrop and, oh, look, we remeasured me and I grew an inch. I have seen that happen. It depends. Some people grow, some people don't. But it's always interesting to get a measure literally right before you do a raindrop and then right after, and see how much decompression has happened just by applying a few oils and these feather strokes. It's amazing. But raindrop in and of itself is a very powerful tool. If you remember, I told you my story in one of the earlier sessions about how our family was was last spring. And we would travel and we'd come home and we'd get sick and we'd get better and we'd travel again and we'd get home and we'd get sick. And it was just this constant cycle. It was terrible. And finally, I just decided one day, I'm like, that's it. We're all getting raindrops. Everybody got a raindrop, and it's like we didn't get sick anymore after that. It was amazing. So yeah, it's a very powerful tool to have. And I've definitely, my friend Missy was telling me a couple of weeks ago that she woke up one morning and she just felt like out of alignment, like her hips were uncomfortable and her back was... Anyway, she told her husband she needed a raindrop, and after that she felt much better and she wasn't hurting. So it is a very powerful tool to have in hand. If you have any questions, please message me, drop a comment on this video. I will do my best to answer them. Again, if you want to see a raindrop demonstration, I can direct you to a video for that. Thank you so much for joining me and for learning about this really cool technique called raindrop. I do believe next week I will continue the 6 a.m. series, but we're going to go back to the basics. So that's actually what our next series is going to be called, Back to Basics. So I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great one. Bye.